Hey, it's Mark again, and in this segment I'm going to cover what is expected of me. So you're an appointment setter, a new appointment setter for telecom recovery, and you want to know what the expectations are, what we're looking for to make it a mutual success. So let's go over a few things that will address just that. First thing is the overall strategy. Kind of talk about what we're going to expect for appointment setters in the position altogether. The second thing I'll do is give you kind of an overview of the position and what's involved. The third thing I'll address is vertical markets. Telecom recovery is approaching different markets in different ways, and so we can talk just a little bit about that as an introduction. The fourth thing is setting appointments. Obviously, this is the critical part of the position, and so we'll talk a little bit about what goes into that as far as our marketing is concerned and what's expected of you that way. And then last but definitely not least, what is a round? This is a term you're going to hear quite often as you're working with telecom recovery. It's part of the core methodology within our prospecting, and so we'll talk about that just a little bit. So let's first talk about the overall strategy for appointment setters. The key thing here is we're looking for appointment setters that can help telecom recovery build its opportunity pipeline. In other words, the amount of revenue and deal opportunities that we have in Salesforce by scheduling 10-minute overview calls with business decision makers in our verticals. So again, we'll talk about the key verticals in just a moment and go into more detail on that. But we're looking for people who can schedule these appointments. It shouldn't be difficult to do. We've been doing this for many years and have had a lot of success with it. Telecom Recovery's product is new, it's unique, it's fresh, and so it's not something where you're out there trying to sell a commodity. It should be a relatively straightforward thing to do. And then also we want you to help us ensure the quality and the follow-through of those appointments by confirming with the contact that you set these appointments with in advance, probably about 24 hours in advance, to make sure that the people show for the 10-minute call and that their expectations are set and they're waiting for the salesperson when that time comes around. So that's kind of the overall strategy for appointment setters. Next, let's talk about the objective of the position. There's several things that go into this in terms of the foundation of what we're looking for here. The first is a completion of rounds by contacting business decision makers. So part of our approach in this sales process is what we call rounds. A round is essentially reaching out to one or more contacts within an account. So we're going to help you identify the key people that you should be calling on, such as telecom managers, business continuity managers, emergency preparedness personnel, and by reaching out to as many of those people as possible within each account, we increase the likelihood of success or scheduling an appointment with that account. So the round is really just what encompasses all of that activity at any given time. So each day you'll be completing a new round for each account that you're contacting. We'll talk more about that later. Second piece is updating Salesforce. You will have some access to our Salesforce CRM. There will be more information on this in a later segment, but for the most part we just want to express that you will be expected to update Salesforce with contact information, notes about your attempts, completion of rounds, which is what we talked about just a moment ago. Again, we'll go into this in more detail in another segment, but this will be a key part of what you're doing. The main portion of your responsibility as an appointment setter at Telecom Recovery will be to schedule 10-minute overviews, or what we call MIs, which stands for Meaningful Interactions, using shared calendaring. So you'll have access to the calendars of the key salespeople here at Telecom Recovery, and we'd like for you to find prospects who are willing to listen to our approach and who might be good candidates for the service we provide, and to schedule a simple 10-minute overview call. And then again, you'll have access to our calendars so that you can schedule it at a time that works for everyone. Again, we'd like for you to reach out and contact the prospect you set up your appointments with 24 hours in advance to confirm that they're still planning on that appointment. And then schedule a minimum of 2 MIs per day. This is a big one for us. There's a lot of calling that's going to be going on to different verticals. We would like for each of our appointment setters to maintain a minimum of 2 MIs, or 2 scheduled appointments per day. We know from experience that it's possible to do much more. People tend to be very receptive of our service, but again, at a minimum 2 MIs per day. Let's go in then to vertical markets. Talk a little bit about the markets that Telecom Recovery has had success with and is pursuing new business out of. The first market is financial. Most of the appointment setters will start out calling credit unions and banks. Typically at a credit union and a bank, we're looking to make contact with a CFO who typically oversees the business continuity plan at a credit union, a telecom manager, a VP of IT, a director of IT, or anybody on staff who oversees emergency preparedness. This financial market is the core market currently of our customer base, particularly credit unions. It's something we've had a lot of success in and we know is really receptive to the service that we provide. The second vertical is healthcare, in particular hospitals. We have a very focused product called Never Down Hospital Service that gives hospitals a way to restore complete communications and even satellite enable their phone systems during a disaster. They're typically very receptive to this. There is a lot of emphasis on disaster preparedness within the hospital community. So this is a very receptive vertical for us as well. Government, which would include PSAPs, which stands for Public Safety Answering Points and Emergency Operation Centers. This is like the locations that answer your 911 calls and government agencies that set up operation centers during disasters and emergencies. Again, very receptive target market for us, but probably something that most of you will not focus on in the beginning. Insurance, the insurance industry is another vertical that we will be approaching as part of this, and collections agencies, call centers in particular, where collections agencies are housed, tend to be pretty open to our service. The key element of your position is setting appointments. So what we mean by that is basically reaching decision makers in these verticals and using a combination of phone, voicemail, and email, reach out and make connection with those prospects and interest them in a 10-minute overview, MI. This is a term you'll hear often. We refer to these 10-minute overviews internally as meaningful interactions. We like to have a dialogue during these conversations, find out about the pain points within the business and where our service would really fit and whether it would be of value to these prospects. So that is the key element of this position, again, scheduling these 10-minute overviews or MIs. And then, of course, as we spoke about earlier, scheduling the MI with a salesperson and with the prospect using shared calendars, which you'll have access to, as well as updating Salesforce and creating a new event. The 10-minute MI will be an event in Salesforce, and so we'll show you in a later segment how to create that event and share it with the telecom recovery salesperson. And then last but not least, as I've mentioned already a couple times, confirming that appointment 24 hours in advance is critical. It's important for us to have good follow-through in these appointments to make sure that the people show up, that they're taking it seriously. And so we will ask you as the appointment setter on any appointment that's more than a day out to please contact that person again 24 hours in advance and make sure that everything is still as planned. What is a round? Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier. The round is really what encompasses this prospecting activity to an individual account in Salesforce. So that's going to include things like conversations with a prospect and with people at any given account, the emails that you send, the voicemails that you leave for those people. And so when you're working an account, we will show you in detail in another segment how to do an actual round, how to complete it. But a round is something that's going to include, if I'm calling ABC Bank and I'm talking to or trying to reach maybe their telecom manager, their CFO, and a branch manager who's over emergency preparedness, I'm going to try and reach out and have as many touches as possible. I'm going to try and have as many conversations, send as many emails, and leave as many voicemails with those key people as possible to increase the likelihood that it hits the right target. And so all of that activity bundled in together kind of encompasses a round in an account. And I think I've outlined that a little bit more here. So activity within a round is reaching out to multiple decision makers, leaving as many touches as possible, and generally we'll go through about 5 rounds for each account. If you haven't had success in reaching somebody or gaining a response, getting a yes or no with an account within 5 rounds, typically we'll have you abandon that account, basically just inactivate the account and move on to something new and fresh. So these are all things that we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into Salesforce and calendaring and the things that we'd like you to do as far as managing these accounts. But again, the goal here is really to make as many points of contact within these accounts as possible and to do everything we can to establish an appointment before we move on. So that's it for now. Again, this has been a quick overview of what's expected of you in the role of an appointment setter. looking forward to a lot of opportunity here. There's an opportunity for you to make a lot of money. It's a new and fresh technology, as I mentioned before, and there should be opportunity for all of us.